The ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine has roots stretching back centuries. Though the modern nation-states only emerged in the 20th century, the lands they occupy have an ancient, complex, and often violent history, marked by competing religious and ethnic groups laying claim to the territory. Our story begins around 1000 BCE, when the kingdoms of Israel and Judah were established in the Levant region by ancient Hebrew tribes and King David. This marked the beginning of a Jewish homeland that flourished for centuries. But in 70 CE, Jewish-Roman tensions erupted into open rebellion, resulting in the ruthless sacking of Jerusalem by Roman emperors. The cherished Second Temple was utterly demolished, and many Jews were sold into slavery or fled the region in exile. In the 7th century CE, Muslim Arab armies emerged from the deserts of Arabia and swiftly conquered the Levant. They spread Islam and the Arabic language, establishing control under various Islamic dynasties, including the Abbasids, Fatimids, and Ayyubids. For centuries, the region flourished under Islamic rule, which was generally tolerant of religious minorities, including Jews and Christians. The Ottoman Empire rose to power in 1516 and would dominate the Middle East for centuries. But by the late 19th century, the once mighty Ottoman realm was in decline. With new nationalist movements on the rise, the stage was set for major changes to the regional order. The nexus of religion, ethnicity, and rising nationalism would lay the groundwork for the modern Jewish state and Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In the early 20th century, the Zionist movement emerged, calling for Jewish self-determination in Palestine, their ancestral homeland. Jewish immigration increased under British control after World War I, but tensions rose with the local Arab population, who also wanted independence after centuries under Ottoman rule. Violent clashes broke out in the 1920s and 30s as Zionists pushed for statehood and Arabs resisted encroachment. After the horrors of the Holocaust, international support grew for a Jewish homeland. On May 14, 1948, Israel declared independence, sparking immediate invasion by 5 Arab armies who sought to crush the new state. Vastly outnumbered, Israel miraculously won the war. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians fled or were forcibly expelled during the war, and Israel expanded its borders, devastating Palestinian society in an event they call the catastrophe. 700,000 Palestinians found themselves homeless refugees across the Middle East. Refusing to recognize Israel, Arab nations armed Palestinian refugee groups to launch attacks known as Fedayeen. In 1967, Arab countries led by Egypt imposed a blockade on Israel and mobilized forces near its borders. Israel preemptively attacked on June 5th, quickly defeating the Egyptian Air Force. In 6 days of fighting, Israel decisively won the war, seizing the West Bank, Gaza, Golan Heights, and Sinai Peninsula. It was a monumental victory, but also sowed the seeds of today's frozen conflicts. And the decades after 1967, Israel began establishing settlements in the occupied territories, complicating peace efforts. Palestinians simmered under occupation, and periodic clashes erupted. The First Intifada broke out in 1987, marked by Palestinian civil disobedience and rock-throwing against the powerful Israeli military. Israel responded forcefully with tanks, tear gas and live ammunition, killing over 1,000 Palestinians in a few years. The uprising lasted until 1993, when the Oslo Accords were signed. Brokered by Norway, the Oslo Accords offered real hope that peace could come through mutual recognition and gradual steps to build trust. It established the Palestinian Authority to govern parts of the West Bank and Gaza, and outlined a process for negotiating a final 2-state settlement. But the peace process stalled as a wave of suicide bombings rocked Israel, and Prime Minister Rabin, who signed Oslo, was assassinated by an Israeli extremist. Settlements expanded rapidly, eating away at proposed Palestinian lands. Camp David talks in 2000 between Arafat and Ehud Barak ended acrimoniously. The Second Intifada erupted, marked by gruesome suicide attacks against Israeli civilians. Israel responded harshly, reoccupying much of the West Bank. Today, peace remains elusive as lack of trust and political will on both sides undermines negotiations. Massive settlements and military occupation fuel anger among Palestinians and groups like Hamas, who demand for independence. Launching rockets from Gaza poison the well further. Today, the Palestinians live under varying degrees of Israeli military control in the occupied territories. The peace process aimed at creating an independent Palestinian state in the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem has stalled for over a decade now. The Palestinian Authority has limited self-rule in some areas of the West Bank, but Israel retains full control over 60% of the territory where Jewish settlements continue to expand. These settlements are considered illegal under international law, but now house over 600,000 Israeli citizens. Gaza is controlled by the Palestinian militant group Hamas after being forcibly evacuated of its Israeli settlements in 2005. Israel and Egypt maintain a severely restrictive blockade on Gaza's borders in response to Hamas rocket attacks. Unemployment, poverty, and lack of infrastructure plague the isolated coastal enclave of 2 million people. Periodic Palestinian uprisings sometimes erupt, either spontaneously or encouraged by Hamas and other militant factions, typically involving knives and homemade weapons, against an overwhelmingly superior Israeli military. The stabbing intifada in 2015 resulted in numerous casualties on both sides. While some Palestinians still believe peaceful protest and diplomacy can bear fruit, others have lost all faith in the two-state solution after decades of failed negotiations and deepening Israeli occupation. However, with no clear alternative, the status quo persists. The future remains uncertain as both sides focus more on managing the conflict rather than resolving it. What is clear is that without courageous leadership and willingness to compromise on core grievances, peace will remain elusive in the Holy Land. We will expand further in Part 2 on the current conflict and its implications for both Palestine and Israel. Thank you so much for watching the video. Please do not forget to like and subscribe for more updates, please. And as always, thanks for watching.